Hello, everybody. Good morning. I guess it could be afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, but wherever you are, it's coffee break time. I'm Spencer Campbell, aka Gila RPGs, and this is Coffee Break. Before I talk about what Coffee Break is, I'm going to let my fantastic friend and guest, Will Jobst, introduce themselves. Will, who the heck are you? What do you do? All that sort of good stuff. And then what are you drinking for Coffee Break?
I love it. Thanks for having me on, Spencer. I'm Will Jobst. I'm a game designer, editor, publisher, games budsman. And I am one half of Good Luck Press. And we make cool boutique role-playing games. And today I'm drinking iced coffee out of a skull cup.
God, that's very good.
Yeah,
That's
right?
very good.
The skull, you can see that it's actually molded glass, right? It's actually
Mm.
blown that way or
It's not
whatever.
actually a skull, is what you're telling me?
It's a glass skull.
Yeah, sure, sure.
We got it from a glass dungeon. But all the little nooks and crannies really help aerate the flavor inside,
I love that.
exposing the um
It's
the
time to get into
coffee.
the coffee. It's time to really get into the science
Yeah.
nerdery of the coffee.
So what are you drinking?
I am just having black coffee. I'm just having regular old coffee made out
Yeah,
of French
come
press.
on.
It's from Dark Matter Coffee. For those of you Chicago heads out there, that's a one of the many roasters in Chicago, and our local cafe that I love that does like board game nights and everything like that I love to support. They partner up with Dark Matter, and so they're my hookup these days for beans.
Nice. I'm drinking Pilot beans out of Toronto, which are really good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
Um
for
it's
folks,
great.
oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
I
just
was gonna
gonna
say,
say,
oh my God.
we're nailing this. Go ahead, Will.
Isn't it cool when your town makes great stuff? When you can get good local stuff and it's great.
it's a
Anyway, that's all I got.
it's a really good feeling. It is a good feeling to just have the goods right there. Um, I was just gonna say, so for folks who are unfamiliar, it's been a while since we've done Coffee Break. What the heck is this show, this stream? Basically, Coffee Break is an excuse that I made for myself to hang out with my very cool friends in the indie RPG scene once a week. Uh, Basically, Sunday mornings, at least my time, Chicago time, we get together, we chat, we have a coffee or some sort of delicious beverage. And it's not an interview show, so I don't have a bunch of stuff set up to like grill Will over all of their work or anything like that.
I've got
It's true. Will apparently has prepared
I
questions
have
for
I
me,
have
though.
questions.
It's just a chance for me to hang out with friends, and then those of you who are hanging out and chat with us, it's just a delight to have you all. It's a nice way to start the week, and what I found is it's a great way for me to stay connected to the community, and it just gets me excited about games again. I feel like every time I do coffee break, I'm like ready to rock and roll with game design, even if we don't even talk about games like that I'm
Yeah.
working on or anything. I just am like in game mode after coffee break, and it's very very good.
Yeah, it's nice and connecting, and it feels like I like that coffee break is kind of seasonal.
Yeah.
Um, and I like understanding my creative process as a thing that grows over the course of a year and changes. Like it's gonna change. Um, and yeah, it's a great, I'm back. It's kind of nice outside, and
It is like it's gonna
yeah,
be 80 degrees for me today, which is
it's
like
really fucked up. That's not
wild.
right.
It's not supposed to be like that. But like it goes back here in Chicago, at least like back to where it's supposed to be in like the upper 50s, which thankfully that's a little bit more in line for April, but 80 degrees today. Not sure how
I,
to process that.
I love the pump fake when like you have to bring the AC out for one night.
Yeah.
We got a big rolly AC, and there was one just because it's a city, and you just get the greenhouse effect sometimes.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, I'm suddenly inside of a human experiment
I
to see
got
what
you.
happens to somebody. To remember, to actually cook my own brain. Yeah,
we were nerding about coffee just before this started. And I want to get back to our coffee conversation just because you had mentioned you had asked if I had made my coffee using my giant gravity bong, which Will is alluding to that thing back there, which is my Kyoto drip make coffee maker that I got because my very good friend Mike Riemann used to work for a coffee company, and they made Kyoto drip, and he introduced it to me, and it was like drinking the greatest. It was the greatest coffee that I've ever had. But it truly is so concentrated. You just need like
Yeah.
this much. It's so potent, but it's really, really delicious. And I was like, I need to have one of these of my own. And then I learned that it takes like 8 hours to make to make like a little vial of it. So it's a summertime treat for me only when I'm on summer break, and I can literally just be like sitting here typing and then like occasionally adjust some nozzles and dials on my on my gravity bong to make sure it obeys itself. So that's not I'll be breaking that out soon. But you had mentioned a new method or something that I wasn't familiar with right before we started talking.
This was like coffee drama that might be 6 months old at this point, but there's this method of brewing. But by the way, hearing you describe that, I think two things. One, next time you do a stream and you have the Kyoto out there, I think you should set up like, you know how some streamers have like a dog camera?
Yeah. Get the
Why not?
Kyoto drip so you
Why
can
not give
see
it
it
its own
moving
scene?
down the
Yeah,
spiral and then ding
exactly.
ding
I'm
ding.
not saying you need to kind of subway surferify your stream. You're interesting by yourself, but Zoomers would love it. I'm thinking.
It's the demographic that I'm really trying to get into.
Yeah, but also hearing uh about every, method of making coffee makes me sure that people are still down to learn a new dice mechanic. So, it's great.
Yeah, like I love nerding out about all the different ways of making coffee. And that's a great way of thinking about it. Why not then nerd out about all the different ways that I can play a game? What the heck? I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. So, okay, the coffee drama was that there was one roastery who figured out this method of, I think it was either for hot coffee or iced coffee, that you brew the coffee over a ball,
Okay.
and the temperature and the whatever of the ball, I think, locks the flavor somehow and flows off of the ball into the thing. So there's this proprietary ball basically that you can get to make your coffee over. And I had just been doing like a Japanese iced drip
Mm,
situation where you just strain your coffee over, directly onto ice. And it was the most measurement I've ever done for coffee.
yeah.
And it tasted great. So the math, the math is
Well,
true.
it turns out that math really can be our friend sometimes.
Yeah. Um, I recently, coffee experience before we get into game stuff, had the best iced coffee I've ever had in my life.
Really?
And I found out where it is.
Where?
It's a place in Toronto called Hot Black, and it is the smoothest, tastiest iced coffee. And I went there. I got it for the first day of Breakout Con, which was last month in Toronto. It's a great little convention. Everybody should go.
I want to go so bad. I want to talk about that too because I'll let you go.
Yeah. And I got it every single day because it was right there downtown.
Nice.
And the like brewmaster was there. I say brewmaster because she seemed like she was a physical part of the cafe, if you know what I mean. Like, when you go to a cafe and you see someone who is a load bearing pillar of
Yeah.
the training like three people at the same time. And yeah, it was amazing. So
Nice. I love
worth
having
the trip.
that I love having that coffee hookup for a con and stuff like that. When we were at Origins last year, Origins was a disaster and I hated it. But the one thing that I liked was there was like a really good coffee place nearby that did uh, a pour over with Ethiopian beans, and I had never had Ethiopian coffee before. And
Oh, yeah.
Mike was like, "Well, you got to try this," and I tried it, and I went, "Oh, this is my new favorite thing." So that was at least our one way to like perk up our day every day was we at least got the Ethiopian pour over,
Oh, that's so good.
which was very very nice. I love Punish Jimble in chat says Wizard Orb Coffee Brewing.
They're
pondering the orb as we
so much orb drama. Because they patented the orb. Okay, imagine patenting a shape.
This is mine now. I think triangles are just mine. I think that's what
Triangles are yours.
the triangle agency folks should have done that. They should have just nabbed the
Yes.
triangle as their own.
Caleb is in the chat, so you can
Caleb.
ask.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, Caleb. You're missing out on a $1 billion idea here. Those things are everywhere. I don't know if you've noticed triangles, pretty popular.
it's pretty great.
And it could be
Um,
yours.
put them together. You can bury me under that. That sounds great to me. So Origins, what's the name of the coffee place that's great around there?
So it's I don't remember the name of the place itself. It's in that cool market that's like a block off of the convention center. There's this
Okay,
it's a big food court market that's got stuff from like all over the place. I'm terrible at remembering
that's
all
kind of
details and names.
that's kind of great for a convention to have that. Like Gen Con has bee roasters.
Right.
That one's pretty good. If you want to stand in line for like 45 minutes for some coffee.
Yeah.
But
Which I love doing that.
what cons do you think what are your like
What's my
goal
con
cons
life?
and what are your dream cons? We know Origins is
Origins is out. Origins, I would
it
go back to Origins as a person to just go to have fun, but I would not
yeah,
go to
very
table it.
trad. Yeah.
It's not a con that people go to buy things from what we
Yes.
gathered and from what we
Yeah.
talked to other people. But it seems like a really cool place to like play a shit ton of games. So we're gonna pretty much consistently do Gen Con and PAX is sort of the plan. PAX Unplugged. Um, I would love then to have a con that's in the first half of the year.
Yeah.
Um, and so figuring out what that might be. Part of it is like the logistics of going to a con is a
It's a
nightmare.
nightmare.
Um,
Horrible. Yeah.
like trying to figure out how you're going to get all your stuff there. So, Gen Con is not bad. For us, it's a 4-hour drive, depending
Nice.
on traffic and construction and stuff. It's not bad. So we can throw everything into a car and we're at Gen Con easy peasy. I mean, as easy peasy as it is going to the biggest con in the States. um, Last year we our hotel was very close to the con, so we just parked the car at the hotel and just
That's sweet.
trolleyed things over from the hotel rather than trying to do the whole dock thing, which was great.
I have
Um,
100% used like a hotel
one of
dolly
those, yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
just
right?
wheeling it down Indiana streets, just hoping a concierge, the night manager doesn't see me.
I when we were at PAX this last December, and PAX very specifically had rules about not being able you were not allowed to do that. You couldn't park nearby and like
They
trolley your
know.
stuff in.
Yeah.
They wanted you to use the like drive up thing, which was actually really really nice. You could just drive literally to your space inside the convention center, which was like a
Oh,
wild experience. Like my car can go inside.
I'm going in
um,
now.
I'm going in, and it was like super super easy as a result. So we're doing those, and there's another one in October, Game Hole Con,
Yes.
which like is a hell of a name for a con. It's in Madison, which is
Oh,
again
nice.
like
Not too far from
super
you.
close to us, and yeah, it's not bad for you, and like, but I sent in an application and never heard back from them, so I don't know if I'm tabling there or not. So we'll find out, I guess.
Classic
Um,
con behavior.
so I don't know, but that's also like October, so it's all like
Yeah.
second half of the year sort of things for me. I haven't found something that fits in my first half of the year.
Is Gary Con on your list?
It's not on my list. Should
I
it be
I
on my
can't really
list?
clock Gary Con.
Neither
Um,
can I, which is why I've never like
yeah. But I
even
know I
proceeded
saw that
going.
like the Jiangxi team went there and I was like, okay, then
Okay.
there might be a space for designers like us. But the things I've heard from Gary Con are like con report horror stories. And Gamma is a strange one too.
Okay.
Gamma is like the selling
Oh
one
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in Nevada, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, yeah. Like I feel like nowadays I'm measuring cons against like do is there like a community
Yeah.
for indie folks? So Unplugged is amazing, day one for that stuff. Gen Con has gotten there because of the work of our forefathers on the forge, just making it possible for us to sell games there. But things like Gamma, I heard some interesting stories from the Wild Sea team
Okay.
about going there, who are great follows on TikTok, by the way, just for like learning about industry stuff, like at like a cut above, you know,
Nice.
where an indie designer might be. But a lot of like drinking on the floor, if you know what I
Oh,
mean.
gotcha.
Just weird, yeah, weird
Sure.
vibes.
All
I've
right.
done some non-RPG cons where there was just like more alcohol just flowing through. It's like this is pretty bad. This is sucks.
Yeah, I totally agree with like PAX in terms of the community. Like they have
Yeah.
always, at least the times that we have been there, they have the indie RPG folks are within close distance, oftentimes visual range of one another. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
we could easily sell each other's stuff. And like that's a thing that I remember specifically writing when they said like, "Do you have any requests?" I said, "Put all the indie RPG people together. We're not each other's competition. We're each other's
Yeah.
cheerleaders." Um, and I'm glad that they're continuing to do that because again to go back to Origins, that's not what they did. They scattered us so far away. So like Charlie and all like the wet ink
Ugh.
people and everything are like 5 miles away, and I'm like, yeah, if you wander, I don't know, 20 minutes that direction, you'll find another RPG.
That's like
Uh,
a filled hex key right there. It's like that's your rumor table. Like
yeah,
somewhere to the north, there's
I
sellers
swear to
like
God,
me.
there's more of these indie RPGs out there. It was real rough. So yeah, I love any of those sort of cons that have the smaller thing. Um, but Breakout Con, that's in
Breakout.
March, right? And
Yeah.
you were there. Tell me
Yes.
about Breakout Con.
It's my third year there. It's great. I really like Breakout because of the type of people I get to run games for at Breakout. Um, and the kind of I think it's extremely strong for like game programming, and the players there are just great.
Yeah.
So that sounds a little bit like hello Cleveland, you were the best city in, you know, rock and roll style. But hello Toronto. um we sold there for the first time, good luck press, this year, and it was our first like Atacon sales, versus like a book fair or zine fairs, which we've done a bunch of.
Nice.
And it was great. There is a big board game contingent that goes there, but um, it's definitely on the smaller side, and tables are blessedly cheap for tabling,
Mm,
which are great. Um, but yeah, I like going there, running a bunch of games, doing talks, and it feels like not the pressure of Gen Con, which I've done like I'm not sure how many times I've been to Gen Con. It's a lot, maybe
yeah.
too much. And doing the whole like mid-sized publisher dance because I was with Pelgrane at Gen Cons, and just extremely chill and normal and good, like
Nice.
a breakout. And it's 3 days. It's in Toronto, so you can like go to a real city and do real city things,
Right.
unlike Indianapolis or whatever. But yeah, why is the game so good? Why is this programming so good? They want you to playtest stuff basically. So they're really interested in new work. And I get to debut stuff there and play it and run it for people who will just come to the table. So I
Yeah.
had a couple of people just rerun my games through the weekend, which were amazing.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and I think the highlight of the con for me was I got to play with this young kid and her dad in like multiple games, and I just got to like hang out with this family and run games. And I had this like she was a teenager, and then she had like a very young brother who would
Mm.
just like run up to the table and clearly annoy the fuck out of her dad. But it was so cute. It was so nice. And yeah, I got to run Plasmatics and Big Grave there. And so those two were super fun to bring back because I had initially done like first playtests of them the year before. And so to
Mm.
have like these very polished experiences a year afterward, just super great.
It sounds really cool. And like I was going to go to Breakout Con, and I ended up not for a host of reasons. And but I want to I want to try it, and but I have a huge problem, Will, which is that I'm
Yeah.
incredibly socially anxious, and I do
Yeah.
not like running or playing games with people I don't know, which is hard
Yes.
as a designer then to like get playtesting data because you usually need to play with people you don't know, and I fucking
Yeah.
hate that. And so like the Breakout Con people reached out to me a million years ago and they said,
They want
"Hey,
you to run stuff.
they were
Yeah.
like, we'll give
Yeah.
you a pass if you come and run things." And I was like, "Oh, uh well, first of all,
No.
I don't know what I would even run because
Yeah.
it was like 6 months out, and I was like, my design process is chaotic at best, and I
Yeah.
couldn't possibly tell you what I'll be doing in 6 months. Um, and two, I was like, there's a part of me that just can't fathom the idea of sitting down with four or however many people and being like, I don't know any of you. Let's sit down together for 2 hours and play this thing that is not even a proven thing, but might
Yeah.
actually suck. And it's
There's going to be a
very
lot of like wishes and clapping to make this work here.
yeah.
So let's all um I I 100% sympathize, and I would like to say for anyone listening and for you, being able to run games at a con is a party trick,
Oh,
and it doesn't communicate anything about your design or like anything about the way you play games. It is like a social little like game, right?
no.
And it is a pretty old-fashioned idea in RPGs that, first of all, to be a guest, that you should have to work by providing this additional value to the con, and that the value has to be this particular
Yeah.
survivor challenge, basically. To like, you have to entertain five strangers for 3 hours with something you made up.
Right.
It's like, oh my god,
So right when you lay it out like that, it sounds insane. It
sounds insane. You
sounds
shouldn't be able to do it. I and like for me, I love it. I love running for new people. It's very exciting, and I came into RPGs from the angle of like, how do I be the best GM possible?
Mm,
And then I was like, well, I make the games for me to run them. Like
right.
that was how I got to where I am now. But yeah, there's lots of people in RPGs who running the game is on a such lower tier of priority,
Mm-hmm.
and it does not affect their art in any way, and it does not affect the quality of their games. I don't think you would tell any, solo designer that, I mean, how do solo designers even fit into this equation?
Right.
You know, I've
Interesting.
seen I've seen con games where a solo designer, they'll play like an open book solo game with a group of people, which I think is a good
Hmm.
exercise. Um,
That's cool.
I actually like that as a format thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird. Also, con adventures are, we can talk about actual RPG design here because I designed two adventures for cons for this one, specifically for the conventions. And they are also yet again still a completely different style and subset of skills
Right.
to make that. Because you start getting to like atomizing like what is happening hour one of this adventure,
Right.
what is happening hour three, and yeah,
That's
it's
interesting.
it's it's very weird.
It's a set of skills that I have not sharpened or even attempted to try and hone in any way, shape, or form, which is why like
And if you're not
it's
interested,
yeah,
it's
that's the thing.
not.
Is like I don't think it's like it's just not high up on my priority list, but it sounds like a fun con. Like it seems like a really cool time. And you know, at Gen Con and at PAX, I had so many people come up to me and they're like, "I'm running games for X, Y, and Z, and it's a great time, and you should consider having people run games." And I was like, "I'll have people run my games, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be the one sitting there running it." And also, I don't want it to be I'm running it in this very playtest sort of like unfinished sort of version of things
Oh
because I just get
yeah.
I don't know. It's for me, it just makes me uncomfortable. But that's just because I'm I don't know. I crumble in those situations.
What do you think about something like Metatopia, where you go with the idea that you're bringing unfinished work
Yeah.
that you're developing, and then the Metatopia board, the organization Metatopia will like the consortium,
Yeah.
the death panel at
I'm
Metatopia will
imagining just a
decide.
panel in total shadows, and I've got a
Yeah,
spotlight on me that I'm trying to explain myself to the
yeah.
Metatopia board.
The Council of Eurasian War,
Uh,
Ministry of Truth. They decide who of the attendees should play test your game.
oh.
Because you fill out a survey that's like, hey, I want these things, and then they're like, okay, we'll put these like 10 these 5 hired guns for these sessions to give you that feedback.
Hmm.
And I know you have a really cool method of playtesting, which is you do danger rooms
Yeah.
often, and you do this very like straight up like means testing games.
Hmm.
Conceptually, and you have like strong enough design practice and instinct that like 70% of the stuff is set by the time you've written it down, and you just need to find out where that 30% lives in the
Right.
danger room. But yeah, what do you think of that kind of stuff versus self-organizing your own playtests, or that thing?
I certainly, I mean, it's an appealing idea to try, just because I have had the open table experiences with playtests, and it can go in either direction, fantastically or disastrously. Because
Yeah.
before I was doing RPGs, I was doing board game and card game design, and we would go to Proto Spiel, which is the prototyping convention that like the game crafter folks got
Yeah.
started with, and it's like all around the Midwest. Um, and like having some really awesome experiences and meeting some cool people, and then just having like disastrous experiences with who, because it's just like, yeah, we're looking for 4 people, and first 4 people who sit down, it's you know
1 in 4 will be like um war crimes level game player.
yeah,
Like,
they
uh,
will.
yeah, like, can I, especially board gamers, because there's less of a, you can like spin a lot less plates if you're playtesting a board game
Right.
versus an RPG. Because an RPG, you can just say, "Oh no, let's do something else." Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, a lot of breakers in that crew, and that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is why that panel idea, or at least sort of like a matchmaker sort of concept, is interesting to me. Of like, okay, I'm assuming that not only are the people who want to play test, like the play testers, the the people who want to play other people's games are filling out a survey of their interests and stuff like that, but then also the people who are bringing games are like, these are the types of people that I want, that I need data from as well, so that there is like a matchmaking. Because if that's
yeah,
the case, then that could actually be really helpful. Like, then you could be like, okay, I want to see if this game works with somebody who is very strict with interpretation of rules. Like, I just want to like see how that works, or I want to play this game with somebody who is infinitely more improvisational with
right,
their
right.
style of play, and I want to see how the game holds up with that type of person. I can see that being extremely valuable.
Yeah. Um, I think that's cool, and I would love an offline way to make that happen,
Yeah.
like, or like an online thing to do. But
Right.
I've found a lot of like good development of my own game design practice in having a building a network of beta readers for manuscripts.
Mm,
And that's a really good way to do that. So I have like somehow looped in a lot of NSR people into this most recent like loop around of
yeah.
plasmatics, and it helps so much because that's like a NSR poser kind of game. And yeah, it's just really cool to get to seek out those perspectives and to be like, I would love for you to read this, and then I will read anything that you have whenever you've got it.
Yeah.
Like building, and then networking. We were talking before the call, like, how do you stay connected and with it, with a scene, or feel like you're moving forward with a group. I
Right.
think that's kind of ultimately the feeling that I want. And beta reading is such a good way to do that, that doesn't require me to like do a tweet
Yeah.
and
To be
and
perpetually
say
online.
something relevant. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I like that. I like that. All right. Cool. I'll think about it. I'll think about it, Will. You got me
Okay,
thinking about it.
I've got some questions for you.
Okay. I'm
Enough
ready.
fun stuff. All right. So I think I want to hear more about. I think I consider both of us to be really widely played players and
Hmm.
game designers, and people that specifically try and make different sorts of games with different implements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what are your dream sectors of game design that you haven't touched yet? It's like, oh, I want to make this
Hmm.
type of asymmetrical card game, or I
Yeah.
want to make, this kind of playbook style RPG. You've
Yeah.
done that for sure, but like
Yeah, I know, but I know what you mean. Yeah. Uh Ooh, that's really good. That's really good. I mean, I 100% want to make like a proper skirmish slash war game. Like
fuck
I
yeah.
want to make that
Yes.
so bad. I want to make because you might like there's boxes and boxes of Warhammer shit back there, and it's all Logan Dean's fault that I got dragged back into it. I got out 20 years ago and then I got back in, and uh we're playing Kill Team, which is very specifically supposed to be like the small scale quick. I was like, great, small scale, I don't have to buy a bunch of stuff, first of all, which is nice, and it should be, in my mind, quick and easy to do. And that game just has so much extra shit going on in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like there's just like it's over designed in terms of all the little stuff that you have to do. And I want, which has just been my MO of all games, I want them to be faster and easier than they are right now.
I
Because
have this
I'm a video
this
game player and I want my board games and role playing games to feel like video games.
I have this like document of your board game critique by Sen Fung Lim.
Mm.
And one of them that I see all the time is I would rather play a shorter version of this game twice than the game once in its current iteration.
Yes, that's
It's like,
so. Yes, I
yeah,
love that. That's a perfect way of saying exactly what I'm trying to say
yeah,
here. Is like there are so many games that I really really enjoy doing and playing that I wish I could play a much more streamlined version and just bang through rounds of the game. Like we played that. I don't know if you've ever played Dungeon Mayhem before. That
no,
it's the D and it's a D&D product technically, but like loosely in that like I have the paladin deck, you have the mage deck or whatever, and it's the simplest little card battler game, and you can play around in like 5 minutes. And so it is the sort of thing like, oh, if you get your ass kicked or the cards don't go your way, it's fine because you're going to be playing another round soon after, which is really, really fun. I really enjoy playing longer games like Netrunner, obviously, but there is like it gets agonizing eventually where you're like, wow, we're 45 minutes in, and I know there's really no path forward for me to win this game, but like we're in it now, and I have to keep like trying to build up all my ice so that you don't eventually steal
yeah.
all my shit.
I fucking
Um,
lost yesterday. So let's
yeah, it's can we wrap this up? So for me, like I want that I want that skirmish game. I want that war game that is like really small scale. That is like, I don't know, 3 to 5 characters that you're in control of that moves quick, resolves quick, so that you're on to playing the next round of it.
yeah.
And you mentioned asymmetry, and I want more of my asymmetrical bullshit in games because I think asymmetry is like something that board games and card games figured out a million years ago, and RPGs are still not figuring out to the degree that I want them to be
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
So that's something that I would really like to do is make a weird little skirmish game, and I've been like messing around with it a little bit, like with some Nova ideas, but I think I want to like expand on it and change a little bit with at least with the description that I or the iteration that I have right now. Caleb is mentioning Hero Clicks in chat. Absolutely, shout out to Hero Clicks. Loved playing, giving them a fuck ton of my money when I was a kid.
I like hearing that you are thinking about skirmish games because I see in games like Rune and Reap and Loot that there's this strong light tactical game that is a cornerstone of it,
Yeah.
but that the iterations are really super quick. Like you can solve each consecutive turn and then get a get a convincing result of
Yeah.
what happens, and then you're out. And I think that's really strong.
That's what that's what I want. That quote of like I want to play a shorter version or a simpler version of a game twice is just so exactly what I want in all games. Yeah, I love that.
Do you want to hear the other ones? They're all really good.
Give me one or two more because I want to hear a
Okay,
couple more of these.
I'm gonna do the hardest hitting ones for RPG designers because this is for board games. This is like I said, Sun Fun Lim, who is an amazing board game and RPG designer,
Yeah.
recently on the Jiangxi team,
Right.
um, with Banana Chan. But your board game critique, things I'd probably tell you if I had play tested your game. So I as you see, I keep it above my desk. These ones hit me the worst, and really changed me. Your game is 1.5 times more clever than it needs to be. Players need to have a great first experience that isn't confusing or one that makes them feel unintelligent.
Oh my god, that's really
It's
good.
fucked up.
That's
It's
really
true.
good.
I've got two more for you.
Hit me.
Innovation is a trap. More often than not, players want something they know and understand with a twist, not something that comes out of left field.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just, are you sitting down for this next
I
one?
think so.
Is everyone in the chat sitting down? Game designers.
Brace yourselves.
Modularity is a trap.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Ensure that the game works as intended with everything you provide in the box. So
Oh
that
no.
specifically is board game, but how many times have you been making a game and you're like, well, you could just plug in all these systems that like communicate all these things about the setting, and it's like they'll choose what they want to do.
Well, I literally just like made the decision the other day. I was like, I'm gonna work on three modular games at the same time, and we have
Oh,
fun little rotating cast of characters. It's,
you know,
this hurts.
it says I think the good things about these is that they don't say modularity is bad. They
Right,
say that it's a trap.
right.
And people can navigate traps all the time,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a rogue.
That's really good. That's very, very good. What do
Yeah,
you want to
these
work
are
on?
oh, what do I want to work on? Okay, so I kind of when I was thinking of this question, I went through the kinds of games that I have made, and I've joked that I want to make one of every game.
Oh, okay. Easy peasy.
Why not? I've done a lot of them. So like tarot
Mm-hmm.
story game, that kind of thing with
Mm-hmm.
Black Mass, a tactics game with Torque.
Yep.
I'm kind of good on that. A NSR weirdy game with Plasmatics. Um, a lootable loot chase kind of game with Big Grave. Those are all on my list, and now I think of like if I'm thinking from a mechanical perspective, I want to make a Rowan Rook and Deckard style character expression game
Mm-hmm.
where you provide players all of these tools to create a very interestingly and uniquely sketched character within a setting.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good
Um,
stuff.
and once I kind of cracked that code about what makes the Rowan Rook and Deckard games so unique in themselves, it's like that. It
Yeah,
feels like that's the superpower that they've got. Um,
that's good.
yeah,
One of
and
everything. Why not?
one of everything. I'm trying to think if there's any components that I haven't used yet.
Hmm.
I think I've all the big ones. I think I'm done. But yeah. Oh, a hex crawl grand campaign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say that I have plans for both of these. Both of these are like named
Yeah.
projects that I'm working on. So it's like I
I always get tempted to do the big old hex map and everything, and then I my brain goes, I don't want to make everything. I don't want to make
don't
something
want to
for all
make
these
this.
hexes. What are you talking about? Stop that.
Uh,
Which is why I
I
went
am
with point crawls for Rune, because it was originally a hex crawl game, and I was like, no, 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 just
yes.
points, points.
Points are really good, and they're both really good at different things.
Yeah,
Um, and I found that once I kind of cracked point crawls, I recontextualized all of my GMing into this framework.
yeah,
I was like, okay, I've been doing these point crawls and just understanding that that's how I kind of run games helped me run games in the future. It was
that's sick.
very, very neat.
Love it. Love those moments, those aha moments.
But a grand campaign. I've been playing Wolves Upon the Coast this year,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and that is like the Luke Gearing's gigantic kind of
Mm-hmm.
dark Nordic hex crawl grand campaign. For those in the chat, a grand campaign is like a huge toolkit sandbox for running extensive play within a place that includes like development for the characters, for the players, and for the world. It's kind of that might be how I would say that.
Yeah,
Um, and it's fascinating, and I want to make one really badly, and I want to make one with a particular genre in mind. Um, and this is something I've been making with Josh Hiddy of Ostrich Monkey.
my
And
God, what a delight to see you two
I
working together. Oh
I
my
know
God, I
Josh is
I
the
fucking
best.
love Josh. Come on.
Yeah. Josh
Okay,
is
well now I'm all in on whatever it is that
in
you're working on.
such a cool, thoughtful, inventive designer.
Yeah.
And we're making the game. I don't know how much I can say about it.
Yeah,
Um,
don't feel
but
like you need to say anything.
it's like because it's just so early that like how
Yeah.
much can I say? But it's it's really cool. And it's really agonizing because it's the game I want to play the most out of anything I've ever been working on.
That's
And so
awesome.
I'm just frustrated that I have to make it
Yeah, that you have to
because
make
I
it
just want to
before
be
you can
playing it.
play it. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be keeping my eyes out on that because you know you two are just fantastic, fantastic designers, and heck yeah, working with Josh, that rocks.
Uh
That'll be very
yeah,
good.
collabs. Collabs are in 2024.
That's the trend. Sick. Very good.
You ready for question 2?
Sure, sure.
Um okay, I will break what game I'm making with Josh when I ask you this question.
Oh, okay.
What game do you want most that doesn't exist yet?
Ooh, what
Yeah.
game?
What's the thing that you want to play the most that's just not there? And I've got another question if that one's a little too.
I gotta let me brew on that in the back of my
Okay.
brain while we talk about something else because I think my brain will figure something out. It just needs time.
The next one is you design a lot out loud, whether it's
Mm,
on a Twitch stream or with a design commentary or um things like the Novaverse lore videos and
yeah.
stuff like that. How do you find that that affects your process? And it's something that I feel like I'm really cagey about and would
Mm,
like to not do as much.
yeah. I really like it. I would say 90% I like it, and then there's like 10% that I see some disadvantages to doing it. I find it really, really helpful to just talk out loud my ideas just because my, to get into psychology, right? It's slower for us to say things than it is for us to think things, right? So if we force ourselves to say things, then we're going to take more time processing that information, which is why like I tell all my students, if you're going to be the person to edit your own paper, which you shouldn't be, you should at least at the very least read it out loud. It forces your eyes to slow down. You're more likely to literally hear the errors but also
Hmm.
catch the errors. So like I find that by having these streams where I just sit there and I just word vomit out loud until something kind of comes about, it's really helpful for me because I spend more time thinking about it. And I also there have been so many times on stream where I'll think I have a good idea and then I literally just have to start talking about it and I go, okay, now that I've said it out loud, that doesn't work at all. In the insular world of my head, it seemed so smart, but the moment I expressed it into the world, I went, nope, that simply won't work, or that's not a good idea, or I actually don't like that one bit. Um, which is really helpful. I I for me, the design streams aren't like a hey, let me like talk to people and get their ideas and like
Mm-hmm.
collaborate with them. It's if there's nobody watching, that's fine. If there's 50 people watching, that's fine. I'm just there kind of talking aloud about my ideas, and I find it really helpful to my process. Which then gets to like the tricky part, which is I have now trained myself to mostly do a lot of my design through this process, through this
Cool.
online streaming thing, which is nice in that like I have a sense of accountability of like, okay, if you want to work on this, go stream it so that you're like doing the work and and all that. But then the problem is that like I then stop myself from just doing some small bits of design work because I go, well, I don't feel like doing a stream right now. And so I
Mm.
go, well, I've only got 30 minutes. That's not long enough for a stream. So maybe I just won't work on this right now. And so then I
Yeah.
don't do as much of the like by myself design work. Which so I use it as an excuse to talk myself out of just like working on something, which
Mm.
is that's the problem. And I don't do any like actual writing on these streams. Like I don't sit there and actually write the finalized prose. It's all bullets. It's all vague ideas.
What a nightmare stream that would be for me.
Right?
To
Yeah.
like to be the streamer for like this sentence would look better this slightly different way.
Right.
Let's just try it.
So like, I don't really struggle with getting that stuff done off stream because I know I don't stream that. But if it's like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
let me just kind of iterate on this idea I had for a supplement, and it's like, well, I don't have time to do it as a stream, so I'm just not gonna do it. And
Hmm.
that's the one drawback from it is that it I sometimes use it as an excuse to just not do anything.
I
um,
I
yeah,
find that there's like a really good so you're saying that like it's stopping you from doing the smaller stuff.
yeah,
Smaller stuff is still in your head.
yeah,
And I have kind of been making this conscious effort to write a little bit less down when I'm
mm,
taking notes, or like I have used my own like Google Keep as a way for me to like shunt away game design thoughts during the weekend or like when I'm not working, so I can just live and
mm,
have the machine cleaning the machine basically. Um, but I will have an idea and just immediately write it down. And I am experimenting a little bit with like, what happens if I sit on the idea for half an hour or like an hour?
yeah,
What if I am chewing it over and developing this thought and the repetition of this thought in my head, whether I'm playing, a game like Balatro or whatever, um, or I'm watching a movie, I can just kind of hang on and kind of ferment it a little bit and see what development happens. So there might be like some strength in percolating on that
yeah.
thing, I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. No, you're 100% right. Absolutely. That's a good way to sort of reframe it in my head of like not feeling
Yeah.
bad about not doing the stream and be like, no, instead you're brewing, Spencer. Let yourself brew.
Cook. Let him cook.
I love that Caleb says, genuinely wild to me that you can design live but are nervous to run your games with new people. Entirely reverse fears to mine. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. But see, here's why it's different for me. I'm a teacher. Like that's my job.
Yes.
I'm a professor, so I'm used to being in front of people, talking to people about ideas. And so when I do design commentary streams or just design streams, I kind of am in teacher mode where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
because again, I'm not trying to get information from the chat. It's not a dialogue. It's a lecture. And if you want to sit and be there, you can, but you don't have to be there. And so for me, it's like here's what I'm like thinking, and here's why I'm thinking it, and here's why I think this is good and this is bad as I'm designing this thing, which to me feels very much like I'm sitting in my cognitive psychology course going, and here's how short-term memory works, and here's what uh and I take questions from the class just like I take questions from the chat, but it's mostly like I'm just gonna kind of tell you about a thing, which is
Yeah.
like totally different than running a game where it's like, okay, I made a thing, and please tell me if thing is good or not.
Yeah. I find that like I do this a lot with Adam Vass on the Brain Trust podcast where we will just extemporaneously make a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's nice because it's not the ink on paper level.
Yeah,
It's like you're kind of just throwing ideas and then augmenting them and then going somewhere else. And that I realized that like I was like, oh, I could never do this on Twitch. And it's like just do this all the time on the podcast.
yeah,
And like it's very fun and I feel like it's such a sword sharpening activity
yeah.
to do.
It's good.
But
I enjoy it.
yeah, I feel like for me I'm a little gun shy of sharing early stuff because I got into the Kickstarter trap, which is like you get a good enough idea and then you
Hmm.
bring it to Kickstarter and then you make it.
Yeah,
And then the process of development changes that initial idea.
yeah,
But because there's money in between there, it really perverts the experience and
yeah,
the process of development. And you might develop something differently than if you didn't have that. And so I'm really nervous about freezing my designs like in a public place,
yeah.
that there might be an expectation tied to it.
Sure.
Because my design style is like cook from cold over and over again. I
Mm-hmm.
will just make a new cake
Yeah.
on and I'll just put the other one aside and be like, great, that worked pretty well, and I think I can do it better.
Right.
And then making it rock. And I look at games like Big Grave Fashion Fantasy and Plasmodics and how many iterations those have went through
Mm.
so long of time and how much I like them now and how much better I've gotten at designing those particular games. And but I think that's a mental thing. That's a mental stack, as they say, that I'm carrying into into
Yeah, I mean,
design.
it's different strokes for different folks. Everyone's got their way of doing it. For me, like going to like that Kickstarter idea, like for me, I've just solidified that by everything I put on Kickstarter is done now.
I
It's done. There is no more development of the thing. I have made the thing. It is written. It might not be laid out, but it is written. It is.
I that's my like thing I'm gonna do every time because I see how successful you are in it, like, and how better it is for the mental game. You know,
It's so much. I remember talking with Adam Bell about this in the past too. Just like it's the worst feeling to like run the Kickstarter of like a game that you want to make or you're like hypothetically making, and they're like, "Great, here's the money." You're like, "Fuck, I have to make this now. This is a nightmare for me." It changes it, and so
yeah.
running the Luna Kickstarter was amazing because it was just literally like it's done, and if you want it, cool. Here's what it's gonna be. I will be changing nothing, and I'm gonna run this campaign for a week, and that's that. It's
The
very very freeing.
the secret thing also, the benefit of that is you can sell that game better than
Right,
you
exactly.
can the fucking wispy. I did the Break Kickstarter with Adam Vass like 4 or 5 years ago now, where we started the Brain Trust, and the whole conceit is that we didn't know what game we were making. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
I'm having a panic attack just thinking about that as an
Each
idea.
and we didn't know if we were gonna fund until the end. It was 35 6 day long campaign. And
Truly
then
the nightmare zone.
on top of on top of designing it week to week, we were doing a different podcast each
Right.
week with a new guest that we were also incorporating their feedback onto the thing. We made something really good by the end, but it was like this is the like capitalism is bad for this reason because you could never do this.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. Uh, but hey,
What we ended up
we
saying by the
learned.
end was like, how can you break Kickstarter without breaking yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
So
There you go. I love that. Uh, I'm trying to think back to the question you had before about the game that I want to see in the world that doesn't exist, or something like. Right? Is
yeah,
that something more or less what
yes.
the question was?
I've got mine, I can
Okay,
tell you.
yeah. You go first.
Okay.
And then
Are
as
you?
a result, spoil what you and Josh are working on
Yeah.
so that
Spoilers.
I know what you're
Everyone.
working on.
Everyone. This is a spoiler. I'm gonna make this because I bodily need to, and like nothing will stop me from making this. Money won't stop me. You know, you cannot buy my silence on this thing. Um, are you familiar with? Okay, this is such a bad first sentence, but are you familiar with a manga called Blame?
Uh, I've heard of it. I don't know
Okay,
anything about it.
it is a story of someone moving through a mega structure, and it's like a post future, and it's a building that exists forever, and it's
It,
a bunch of useless built environments.
is this what Josh's that thing that Josh made isn't
Death grind
yeah
mega structure.
okay, yeah, okay, I have an understanding conceptually of what it's about now. Yes.
Yes, and Death Grind is a really great game. I got to run it at a game night a few months ago, and it was just such a blast. Um, but there's lots of these stories about megastructures, whether it's Fearsome Engines by Ian M. Banks. Obviously, Blame is a big one, and there's a ton of others. And I'm currently in like the reading and watching phase for this stuff. But group of people moving through this physical space that also has a limitless like digital space as a part of it. So there's these two axes of movement.
Mm,
And so what I want more than anything, the game I would play the most if it existed, is a grand campaign inside of the hyperstructure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, where you can traverse this strange, inhumanly scaled. What if a hex took 1 year to cross? This kind of thing. Um, and what if a hex had a digital component that you could split off into another axis and go on? And okay, see, it sounds sick, right?
It sounds really, really sick. It sounds very good.
um, we're calling it right now Voronoi Tessellation, but we'll see where the title ends up.
Okay.
And yeah, where we met in January about it and are just very slow back burner. We both have huge projects going on right now. Josh with Tomb Raider,
Uh-huh.
which is looking amazing, and me with Plasmatics and Big Grave. But
Also looking amazing.
oh, thank you. And I just want to play it so fucking bad, and I think about it all the time, and I just read everything I can. So I found the manga artists like reading list for this stuff, and I'm
Mm,
now reading all of the inspirations and going through. Um, it's just so cool. There's a Blame movie on Netflix that's pretty good.
that's sick.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's wow. That sounds awesome. That sounds very, very cool. I'm glad you two are working on that too. It just seems like it's going to be very, very good as a result. And
So like
it
it's
pains me to know it's in the back burner because that just means it's going to be a while before I see this
yeah.
sucker.
Maybe back burner's the wrong thing. It's like I have my work and then I have the little prize work I get to
Yeah,
think about. Like,
little treat.
yeah, little treats.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like how to create something this big, it's really nice collaborating with Josh, who is particularly good at like character focused player facing mechanics.
Mm.
I feel like Josh is like one of the greats for
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that just means I get to think about larger, like systemic ideas, like movement and
Mm.
traversal and content and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, because those are two completely different brain zones. But
Those are very good brain zones.
yeah,
All right, I have two things in mind. And
sick.
one is something that I already know exists, but I want like my take on it. And then another is I don't know if it exists, probably does, but I just am unaware of most of the things that exist in the world. And so who knows? The first thing, I mean, so the one thing that I love a faction turn more than anything else in life. I love a faction turn. I want a living world. I want a live RPG. That's what I want. And by
This
that,
is this is why we play, Spencer. For answers like that. Yeah.
I want
Fuck
I
yeah.
want the live RPG. I've been talking about the live RPG for it feels like 5,000 years. Talked with it about it with BLG Brendan Leon Gambetta. Like he loves it too. What I mean by live RPG is I want an RPG that feels like a video game in that it like has weekly
Mm-hmm.
updates slash
Mm-hmm.
monthly updates or something like that. It fits the style of games that I play, which are these very like it's a mission. You're gonna go out on a mission. It's a crisp gameplay cycle. But what makes the live RPG different is that it is fed by data coming in both directions. So that there is
Mm.
play data coming in from the group that is playing the game in a shared world that I collate and then I update the world once a month and the world has changed. The factions have moved. There's new parameters in different like imagine it takes place in our solar system, right? And so like I use light as the example because light takes place in our solar system. So like Mars has been bombarded by the Corvus Dominion this last month. So like, hey folks, you should run some missions on Mars to push them back. If you don't, there might be consequences. This is essentially what Helldivers is doing right now,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is like awesome to see. Um, so like I want the game that players are sending me feed like data from their games to be like this is where we played, this is who we played against, this is the outcome. I'm using that to update the world. Once a month, I update the world and say, here's the new state of this system. Here's how it affects missions in X, Y, and Z places. And then at the same time, like, hey, this week or this month, here's a new cool piece of loot. Because again, it would fit with a Lumen game, like a looter shooter or something like that. This piece of loot, if you go to the asteroid belt and take care of this specially crafted mission for the month or the week or whatever, you can get this piece of loot that normally doesn't
Yeah.
exist. Um, and truly make it the looter shooter live service game that is a role playing game is the thing that I like really super want in life. I think it would be really fun to make and like
Yes.
to like to be the person like the dude who's been hired to do that for Helldivers has the coolest
Joel.
job in the world. Yeah, to just be like, cool. How do I want to kind of mess with these divers this week? What kind of weird thing do I want to tinker with or reveal or push them in this direction? And like, I would love to do that. Like, I would love to make a live RPG version of Nova or something, and
Yeah.
like have then here's an established section of the world of Oberyn of the Dusk, and it takes Helios is the center city, and you're Sparks who deploy from Helios, and here's how the world changes on a week by week or monthly basis based off of that. It requires a lot of work, obviously.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like I have also had that dream and have seen a couple iterations of this try and happen. So there's definitely some cool paths for you to take to make that happen.
you know,
And one is like actually doing a Kickstarter for a season of this, you
that's
know,
how I think I would have to do
something
it.
like
I
that.
think that's how I would have to do it because the only way this works is if you have a base of people who are going to play it, right? Like
Yeah.
you need the player base to get the data to have the data conversation in the first place. Otherwise, I'm just iterating on a world that is like no one's playing in, so it's not changing unless I'm just changing it and like no one is interacting with it. But I want the like okay, we've got X number of people out there playing this on a semi regular basis, once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Here's how the game changes over the course of the year or something like that. That's
It
season one.
it makes you think like why doesn't Lancer have this?
Yes,
Like
right?
Lancer is kind of like the perfect game for this. It's got a huge player base. The whole license system is perfect, like a perfect meta mechanic for this idea.
Yeah. So
Fuck.
I want to do it. I just need to figure out like which game I want to do it for
Yeah.
ultimately and then like make the final decision like this is the game. This is the one that has the season the live effect or whatever. Um but that's my like my white whale that I would love to do is to have the live RPG. And like I genuinely think like if I had a thing that like there are enough people playing, like it would be a fun thing for me to just be like, this is what I do now. Is I just like every month I get to just iterate and make cool shit for this thing. Like that's I'm moving in that direction with games anyways, where it's
Yeah.
like I want to just iterate in a place, in a space.
Yes.
So like I'm making all these Novaverse games because I just want to live in that universe now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is my world. And I like to kind of play in it and make stuff for it. And here's a million different ways that you can play in it. So this is like, cool, this is the Nova world. And this is your chance to just see the Nova world change with time. And I get to just every month think about how I want to mess with this world. That sounds like the dream.
Yeah. I mean, even having it be a seasonal thing that like in January you buy tickets and we're over by June.
Yeah.
And then you make stuff in the in between.
Right.
Like Mad J Zero, who is a very cool RPG designer and game runner, did a Kickstarter just for a West Marches campaign.
Yeah.
That like every player got a gazette of what was going on in the game. And I bought a ticket and never found time to play, but I loved being a part of it. It was
Yeah.
just so cool.
And like then you also get like the faction turn level stuff too, like to drum up a forbidden name of a shitty person. Adam Coble did this,
Sure, yeah.
right, with the Swan Song campaign in role on the role play actual stream, however many years ago that was, of like, because they played it with Stars Without Number, and Stars Without Number has an awesome faction turn rule system.
Yeah.
And it was not run by Adam entirely, but it was like people were divided up on a Discord server into the various factions, and then every week they'd just be chatting with each other and submit their moves. And it's
So
a really
cool.
fucking cool idea done by somebody
Yeah.
that turned out to be kind of not
The,
so great.
the worst person you know made a great point.
Yeah, right?
The time.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. And then that's a VIP ticket, right?
Right.
Like being part of that. I don't know. Not to just give like say you should do this, and I think you'd be perfect for it, but
I think I would be really good at
you
this.
would. You totally would.
I think this would be like my really, really happy place. And I think the thing that is there's a lot of things that like slow me down in doing it. The thing that makes me that's stopping me from doing it is figuring out what world I would do it in, and like
Yeah.
what game it would be for, because
Yeah.
I know the second I start developing it for one, I'll be like, oh, but it would be really cool if I did it in this instead. And then like I have made the mistake of having too many projects so that it stops me from working on any given project.
Yeah.
So I'm literally putting bullets into my games right now to be like, nope, done. To use your analogy earlier, this is as far as the cake is going to be baked. It's done.
Yeah.
Let's do something else, because
It's dinner time.
because I just simply am not making progress on things, which is like very frustrating to me. Not because I need to release, but because I just don't feel like I'm getting stuff done, and I want to feel like I'm making things.
Yeah, what's the SNL quote? It's like it's not ready. It's just 11 p.m.
Right.
So we got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want. So I don't know. Maybe this is the I want to do this so bad, and maybe
Yeah.
now
See?
that we've had this conversation, I will probably spend all the rest of the day to figure it out.
See, not only is it that feeling that's so important, but it's the kind of aggravating
Yeah.
aspect of it that it's like, damn, this is going to be really hard, and I'm frustrated that I just can't be a part of it already.
Right.
And then it's just going to make you make it for that version of yourself, which is
Exactly.
great.
So that's the thing that I think manifested most clearly in my mind when you asked that question.
Great.
Really good question, and now it's got me like, I know 100% once we wrap up here, what I'm gonna be staring at all day long on my computer screen is like, all right, make the call. What's the game? Let's just
When's it gonna
do
happen?
this thing.
Yeah.
Let's start timing it out. Let's think about the logistics. What does it look like?
Time to be bad.
So tricky. So tricky. See, I'm getting distracted. I'm thinking about it.
That's why coffee is so dangerous for this show.
Yeah.
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 It's
I'm
because
activated.
yeah.
I'm ready to go.
If this was like NyQuil break, it would be a different vibe.
Real nice. Be like, all right, I'm gonna have a nice little snooze after this. Let Dream Spencer figure this one out. Dream Spencer's got his own ideas about what he should be working on. Uh, well, Will, this has been an absolute delight of a time chatting with you this morning. I've had a great time. I'm out of coffee, and now my mind is completely preoccupied
You
with
got work
working.
to do
I
now.
got shit to do now, which I must thank you for. I thank you for that gift of, I said at the beginning that this usually gets me excited about games. This is the most I've been excited in a
Yes.
while, so I'm very excited. Um, Will, why don't you tell folks what you are up to or where they can find you, any of that sort of stuff that you want to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, again, thanks for having me on. This is my favorite show, and it's so great to see to just place a tarmac of interesting work in front of you to see what you do with it. So that's great. But yeah, you can find me, go to Good Luck Press, and you can find all my games, and you can sign up for the mailing list. Coming out this year will be Plasmodics, Mutant Freaks in the Weird Future. It's like if you put a classic post-apocalyptic RPG in the microwave for a couple days and add something weird at the end. And you can go to biggrave.com to save the Kickstarter, which will be up this summer at some point. This is the game where aesthetics have power, and it's the season of your reinvention. So we're talking about looter shooters. You collect a loadout of fashion, and you go take down strange style rivals in a bespoke fashion system. Um, yeah, and
Hot damn.
other than that, Spencer and I just design games for each other to enjoy.
Yeah.
It's the best. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to honestly hear your conversations for the rest of the coffee break season with other designers and see what other people are doing. So
Yes.
stay tuned to the show.
Yes, next week I'll be sitting down with Cassie Mothman. Very excited to talk to
Yes.
Cassie. And I've got the sort of the first season almost locked up. I've got one more spot to fill, and then I'll go on my summer break, and we'll come back for another season after that. So, thank you all for watching. If you watched this live or missed any of it, I'll put VODs up in the various places where you can watch these things. And have yourselves a wonderful rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, wherever it is you are. It's been a delight. Thank you so much. This is Coffee Break. We'll see you next week. Bye.